The rain slammed against the apartment window, a relentless drumbeat that mirrored the pounding in my chest. I stood in the kitchen, gripping the edge of the counter, the confession I'd rehearsed for weeks clawing its way up my throat. Across the room, Jake sprawled on the couch, oblivious, scrolling through his phone with that easy grin that made everything feel lighter until tonight. We'd been roommates for 2 years, ever since I answered his Craigslist ad in a desperate bid to afford Chicago rent. Jake was the kind of guy who could charm a stranger in 10 seconds flat, broad shoulders, hazel eyes that crinkled when he laughed, and a knack for making you feel like you were the only person in the room. He was straight, unequivocally so, with a string of girlfriends who came and went like seasons. I, on the other hand, was Ethan, quiet, bookish, and gay, though I'd never said it out loud. Not to him. Not to anyone. Tonight, though, something had snapped. Maybe it was the 5th time he'd asked why I never dated, or the way his hand lingered on my shoulder when he passed me a beer. Maybe it was just me, tired of carrying a secret that felt like a lead weight in my gut. "Jake," I said, my voice barely cutting through the rain. He looked up, eyebrows raised. "I need to tell you something." He set his phone down, the couch creaking as he leaned forward. "What's up, man? You look like you're about to confess to a crime." His tone was light, teasing, but his eyes were sharp, like he could sense the storm brewing in me. I swallowed hard, the words sticking like damp paper. "I'm gay." There it was, raw and exposed, hanging between us like a live wire. My heart thundered, waiting for the fallout discomfort. Distance. The awkward shift I'd seen in others when I'd even hinted at it. Jake blinked, his grin faltering for half a second before it returned. Softer. "Okay," he said, like I'd just told him I preferred pizza to burgers. "That's cool. Ethan, why didn't you tell me sooner?" I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. I'd braced for rejection. Not this. Acceptance. So casual it almost felt like a trick. "I didn't know how you'd take it," I admitted, my voice low. "You're, straight. And we live together. I didn't want to make things weird." He laughed, a short, warm sound that cut through my nerves. "Weird? Dude, we've survived your cooking. This ain't gonna break us." He stood, crossing the room to grab another beer from the fridge. "So, what's the deal? You got a secret boyfriend stashed somewhere?" "No," I said too quickly, heat creeping up my neck. "It's not like that. I've never really acted on it. It's complicated." Jake raised an eyebrow, leaning against the counter, close enough that I could smell the faint cedar of his cologne. "Complicated how? You're telling me you've never even kissed a guy?" His tone was playful, but there was something else in it, curiosity. Maybe. Or a challenge. I shook my head, avoiding his gaze. "Nope. Never got that far." He tilted his head, studying me like I was a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. "Prove it," he said suddenly, his voice low, almost daring. "You're telling me you're gay, but you've never even tried. Come on, Ethan." Show me. My breath caught. Show you what? The words came out sharper than I meant, my pulse spiking as his eyes locked on mine. He didn't back down, his grin turning mischievous. I don't know. Kiss me or something. See if it's your thing. He stepped closer, his shoulder brushing mine, and my brain short-circuited. Was he joking? Testing me? The air between us felt charged, like the moment before a lightning strike. Jake, you're straight, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. But I didn't move away. I couldn't. Yeah, he murmured, his eyes searching mine. But I'm not scared. And then, impossibly, he leaned in. His lips were soft, tentative at first, like he was giving me an out. My mind screamed to pull back, to laugh it off, but my body had other ideas. I kissed him back, clumsy and desperate, my hands finding his shoulders as the world narrowed to the warmth of his mouth, the faint stubble grazing my chin. It was over in seconds, but it felt like years, my heart pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it. He pulled back first, his eyes wide, his breath uneven. Well, damn, he said, a shaky laugh escaping him. Guess you weren't lying. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. My secret was out. And now this whatever this was had just rewritten everything I thought I knew about us. About him. The rest of the night passed in a blur. Jake acted like nothing had happened, cracking jokes and turning on the TV. But I caught him glancing at me when he thought I wasn't looking. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, replaying the kiss, the dare, the way his eyes had lingered. What did it mean? Was it just a game to him? A moment of curiosity? Or was there something more? Something neither of us was ready to name. The next morning, he was gone before I woke up, his gym bag missing from the hook by the door. I told myself it was nothing, that he was just busy. But the apartment felt emptier without him. I spent the day cleaning, trying to distract myself. But every creak of the floorboards made me jump, hoping it was him coming back. When he finally did, late that afternoon, he was quieter than usual, his usual swagger muted. Hey, he said, dropping his bag by the door. You good? Yeah, I lied, my throat tight. You. He nodded, but his eyes didn't meet mine. Got a date tonight, he said, almost too casually. Met this girl at the gym. Thought I'd take her out. My stomach twisted, but I forced a smile. Cool. Have fun. He hesitated, like he wanted to say something else. But then he just grabbed his jacket and left. The door clicked shut, and I was alone again, the weight of last night pressing down on me. Had I misread everything? Was that kiss just a fleeting moment? A dare that meant nothing to him? Or was he running from it, just like I was? I didn't know. All I knew was that I'd opened a door I couldn't close. And now, everything was different. The next week was a tightrope walk. Jake and I moved around each other like we were handling fragile glass. Polite but distant. Our usual banter replaced by awkward silences. I buried myself in work, taking extra shifts at the bookstore to avoid the apartment. But every time I came home, the memory of that kiss lingered like a ghost. Jake's date with the gym girl Lila. He'd called her seemed to fizzle out quickly. He mentioned her once. Vaguely. Then never again. I didn't ask. And he didn't offer. Instead, we tiptoed around the elephant in the room, pretending everything was normal. But it wasn't. I caught myself watching him when he wasn't looking, how he ran a hand through his hair when he was thinking, how his laugh could fill a room. I hated myself for it, for letting one moment turn me into this lovesick mess. One night, I came home late, exhausted from a double shift, to find Jake on the couch with a beer in hand, staring at the TV but not really watching. The room was dark except for the flickering screen, casting shadows across his face. Long day? He asked without looking up. Yeah, I said, dropping my bag by the door. You? He shrugged, taking a sip. Just thinking. His voice was low, heavier than usual. I hesitated, then sat on the other end of the couch, leaving a careful distance between us. About what? I asked, my heart creeping into my throat. He turned to me then, his eyes searching mine in the dim light. About you. About what happened? My breath hitched, but I stayed silent, afraid to break whatever this was. He set his beer down, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. I keep replaying it. Ethan. That night. I don't know what I was thinking, but I don't regret it. The air felt too thick, too charged. You don't. I managed, my voice barely audible. He shook his head, a small, almost shy smile tugging at his lips. Nah. It was different. Good different. He paused, like he was weighing his next words. I've never thought about guys like that before. But with you, I don't know. It's you. My heart stuttered, hope and fear colliding in my chest. Jake, you're straight, I said, echoing my own words from that night. But this time they felt flimsier, less certain. I thought so too, he said, his voice soft but steady. But then you told me your secret, and I started questioning mine. He leaned closer, just enough to make my pulse race. What if I'm not as straight as I thought? I didn't know how to respond. Didn't know how to process the fact that Jake, who'd always been the poster boy for confidence, was sitting here, vulnerable, cracking open a part of himself he'd never explored. Before I could find words, he reached out, his hand brushing mine, tentative but deliberate. Can I try something? He asked. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. He closed the distance, his lips finding mine again. Softer this time, more certain. It wasn't a dare anymore. It was real, raw, and overwhelming. My hands found his face, his jaw warm under my fingers. And for a moment, nothing else existed. When we pulled apart, his forehead rested against mine, our breaths mingling. Okay, he whispered, a shaky laugh escaping him. That's definitely not nothing. But reality crept back in, cold and sharp. Jake wasn't just my roommate. He was my best friend. The one constant in my chaotic life. What if this broke us? What if he woke up tomorrow and decided this was a mistake? I pulled back, my hands dropping to my lap. Jake, what are we doing? This could ruin everything. His expression faltered, but he didn't let go of my hand. Maybe. But what if it doesn't? What if it's more? His voice was earnest, almost pleading, and it cracked something open in me. I'm scared, I admitted, the words spilling out before I could stop them. I've spent my whole life hiding this. And now you're here, making me want things I can't have. You can have this, he said, his grip tightening. If you want it. Ethan, I'm right here. But I wasn't sure I believed him. Not yet. The next few days were a whirlwind of stolen glances and hesitant touches, each one pulling us closer but leaving me more terrified of the fall. Jake was trying. I could see its small gestures, like making me coffee in the morning or lingering a little too long when we brushed past each other in the kitchen. But doubt gnawed at me. Was this real for him? Or was it just a phase? An experiment he'd walk away from when the novelty wore off. Then came the night that changed everything. We were at a bar with some of Jake's friends. A loud, crowded place downtown. I'd gone along to keep things normal, to prove we could still be us. But the tension between us was palpable. One of his buddies, Mike, kept pushing shots at us, his laughter booming over the music. Come on, Jake. You and Ethan are like an old married couple already, he teased, oblivious to the truth. Jake laughed, but his eyes flicked to me, a silent question in them. I forced a smile, but my chest ached. Later, as we stumbled out into the chilly night, Jake grabbed my arm, pulling me aside. You okay? He asked, his breath visible in the cold air. I don't know, I said honestly. It's a lot. I don't know how to do this without losing you. He stepped closer, his hands framing my face, his voice fierce. You're not going to lose me, Ethan. I'm in this. For real. And then he kissed me, right there on the sidewalk, with the city buzzing around us. It wasn't tentative this time. It was a promise, a claim, and I felt myself falling, deeper than I'd ever meant to. But promises are fragile, and the world isn't always kind. The next morning, I woke to a text from Jake, need to talk. Meet me at the park. My stomach dropped, the weight of those words pulling me back to earth. Was this it? The moment he'd back away, tell me it was too much. I didn't know, but as I pulled on my jacket and headed out, I braced myself for the worst. The park was quiet, the early morning mist curling around the trees like a secret. Jake was already there, sitting on a bench, his hands stuffed in his jacket pockets. He looked up as I approached, his expression unreadable, and my heart sank. This was it. I thought the moment he'd tell me it was a mistake, that he wasn't ready for this. Hey, I said, sitting beside him, leaving a careful gap. The air felt heavy, charged with everything we hadn't said. Hey, he echoed, his voice low. He stared at the ground, scuffing his shoe against the gravel. Last night was intense. Yeah. I swallowed, bracing myself. If you're having second thoughts, just say it. Jake. I can handle it. He looked at me then, his eyes sharp, almost angry. Second thoughts. Ethan, I'm not backing out. I'm freaking out because I've never felt like this before, and it's messing with my head. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. I've always known who I am, straight. Simple. No complications. But you're turning everything upside down. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or terrified. So what does that mean? For you. For us. He leaned back, staring at the sky like it might have answers. I don't know. I just know I can't stop thinking about you. About last night. On the sidewalk. I didn't care who saw us. That's not me. Ethan. I'm the guy who plays it safe. Who sticks to the script. But with you, I don't want to. His words hit me like a tidal wave, washing away some of my doubt, but leaving new fears in their wake. Jake, this isn't just about you figuring yourself out. This is my life. I've spent years hiding, being careful. If we do this, it's not just a fling for me. It's everything. He turned to me, his gaze steady. I get that. And I'm not playing around. I need time to catch up with what I'm feeling. Can you give me that? I wanted to say yes, to trust him. But the fear was still there, sharp and insistent. I'll try, I said finally. But I need you to be honest with me. If this gets too big, or if you change your mind, don't string me along. I won't, he promised, his hand finding mine, his fingers warm against my cold skin. I'm in this, Ethan. I'm not going anywhere. For the next few weeks, we fell into a new rhythm, one that felt both exhilarating and fragile. Jake was true to his word, showing up in ways that surprised me, small things, like leaving notes on the fridge or pulling me into a hug when I got home from work. But there were moments of tension too, times when I caught him staring into space, wrestling with thoughts he didn't share. I didn't push, but the uncertainty gnawed at me. One night, we went to a local queer bar, my first time stepping into that world with him. I was nervous, hyper-aware of every glance, every touch between us. Jake, though, was all in, his arms slung around my shoulders, his laugh loud and unself-conscious. Relax, he whispered in my ear, his breath warm. You're with me. But not everyone was as accepting. A week later, we ran into Mike at a coffee shop, and his easy grin faded when he saw Jake's hand on my arm. Yo, what's this? He asked, half laughing, half accusing. You two a thing now? Jake didn't flinch. Yeah, he said simply, his tone daring Mike to push back. Got a problem with that? Mike raised his hands, backing off, but the encounter left a sour taste. I could see it in Jake's eyes later, the weight of being seen differently, of losing the easy acceptance he'd always had. You okay? I asked as we walked home, the city lights blurring around us. He nodded, but his jaw was tight. It's just new. I'm used to people liking me. Now I'm wondering who's going to turn on me. I stopped, grabbing his hand. You don't have to do this, Jake. Not for me. If it's too much. It's not. He cut me off, his voice fierce. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for me. Because I want this. I want you. His words should have been enough. But doubt lingered, a shadow I couldn't shake. What if the world pushed back too hard? What if he wasn't ready for the cost of being with me? I didn't voice it, but the fear was there, growing with every sideways glance we got, every whispered comment behind our backs. Then came the call that upended everything. Jake's phone rang late one night, his mom's name flashing on the screen. He answered, his voice tight, and I could hear the strain in her tone even from across the room. When he hung up, his face was pale. My dad's in the hospital, he said, his voice hollow. Heart attack. They don't know if he's going to make it. I reached for him, but he pulled away, grabbing his keys. I gotta go home. To Ohio. I'll be back. I don't know when. Let me come with you, I said, my heart racing. You don't have to do this alone. He shook his head, his eyes distant. No, Ethan. This is family stuff. I need to handle it. He was gone the next morning, leaving a note that just said, I'll call you. I stared at it, my chest aching, wondering if this was the beginning of the end. Had I pushed him too far, too fast? Or was this just life, pulling us in directions we couldn't control? The apartment felt like a tomb without Jake. His absence was everywhere, in the empty coffee mug on the counter, the quiet couch, the gym bag still missing from its hook. I tried to keep busy, throwing myself into work. But every night I checked my phone, waiting for a call that didn't come. He texted once. A brief, "Dad stable. But it's rough. Talk soon." That was it. Days turned into a week, then two, and the silence grew heavier. I started questioning everything. Had I misread him? Was he using this time away to pull back, to rethink what we'd started? The memory of his kisses, his promises, felt like a dream I couldn't trust. I wanted to believe in him, in us. But fear was a relentless companion, whispering that I'd been a fool to hope. One night, I went back to the queer bar alone, needing to feel something other than this ache. The music was loud, the crowd vibrant, but I felt like an outsider, nursing a beer in the corner. A guy approached me with a kind smile, and we talked for a while. He asked me out, and for a moment, I considered it. Maybe this was what I needed. Someone who was already out, who didn't carry the weight of a life turned upside down. But I couldn't do it. I thanked him and left, the night air cold against my skin as I walked home. Jake's face still burned into my mind. When Jake finally came back, it was unannounced. I was in the kitchen, making coffee, when the door opened, and there he was, tired, unshaven, but undeniably him. My heart leapt, but I held back, unsure where we stood. "Hey," he said, dropping his bag. "Miss me?" I wanted to laugh, to cry, to throw my arms around him. But I just nodded. "Yeah. You okay?" He shrugged. His eyes shadowed. "Dad's better. But it was a lot. Mom's a mess. And my sister's trying to hold it together. I just needed to be there." "I get it," I said. But the distance between us felt wider than ever. "You could have called. You know." "I know." He looked away, rubbing the back of his neck. I didn't know what to say. Everything's been so intense, and I didn't want to drag you into it." "You wouldn't have dragged me," I said, my voice sharper than I meant. "I wanted to be there, Jake. For you." He met my eyes then, and for the first time, I saw something raw, unguarded. "I'm sorry," he said. "I wasn't sure if I could handle itis. My family. All of it. But I missed you. Every damn day." I wanted to believe him, but the hurt lingered. "Then why didn't you reach out?" "I was going crazy here, thinking you were done with me." "I'm not done," he said fiercely, stepping closer. "I'm not. Ethan. I just needed time to figure out how to do this. My family, they're not like me. They're old school. Traditional. If I tell them about us, it's going to be a fight. So don't tell them," I said, my voice breaking. "But don't shut me out either." He reached for me then, pulling me into a hug that felt like coming home. "I won't," he whispered. "I promise." We spent the rest of the night talking, catching up on the weeks apart. He told me about his dad's recovery, his mom's endless worrying, the way his hometown felt smaller than ever. I told him about the bar, the guy who'd asked me out, and how I couldn't stop thinking about him. His eyes darkened at that, but he just squeezed my hand. "Good," he said, "because I'm not letting you go that easy." But life wasn't done testing us. A few days later, Jake got a call from his sister, Sarah, inviting us to Thanksgiving at their family home in Ohio. "Both of us?" I asked, my stomach twisting. "Yeah," he said, his voice cautious. "She knows we're close. She doesn't know everything, but she wants you there." I hesitated. Meeting his family felt like stepping into a minefield, especially knowing how traditional they were. But Jake's eyes were pleading, and I couldn't say no. "Okay," I said. "Let's do it." The drive to Ohio was long, the November air crisp and biting. Jake was quieter than usual, his hands tight on the steering wheel. "They're gonna love you," he said, but it sounded like he was trying to convince himself as much as me. When we arrived, his family was warm but guarded, their smiles polite but curious. His mom hugged me. His dad shook my hand. And Sarah watched us with a knowing look that made me uneasy. Dinner was a blur of small talk and tension, Jake's hand brushing mine under the table. A silent anchor. But I could feel the weight of their expectations. The unspoken questions about why Jake, their golden boy, was still single. That night, in the guest room, Jake slipped into bed beside me, his arms pulling me close. "You okay?" he whispered. "I don't know," I admitted. "Your family's great, but I feel like I'm lying to them." "You're not," he said, his voice firm. "We're figuring this out together. They don't need to know everything yet." But I wasn't so sure. The truth had a way of coming out, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were on borrowed time. Thanksgiving dinner lingered in my mind like a half-remembered dream, warm but edged with unease. Jake's family was kind, but their questions about my life, me job, my plans, my lack of a girlfriend felt like probes, searching for something I wasn't ready to give. Jake deflected when he could, his hand finding mine under the table. But I saw the strain in his smile, the way he tensed when his dad mentioned settling down. Back in Chicago, we tried to reclaim our rhythm, but something had shifted. Jake was more affectionate, pulling me into hugs or kissing me when we were alone. But he was also distracted, his phone buzzing with texts from his sister or mom. I didn't ask what they said, but I could guess questions about us, about why he'd brought me home. The weight of it pressed on us both, unspoken but heavy. One night, we were sprawled on the couch, a movie playing that neither of us was watching. Jake's head was on my chest, his breathing slow, but I could feel the tension in him. "What's going on?" I asked, my fingers pausing in his hair. He sighed, sitting up. "Sarah called today. She asked if we're, together." My heart stuttered. "What did you say?" "I didn't deny it," he said, his voice low. "But I didn't confirm it either. I'm not ready for that conversation with her. Not yet." I nodded, but the words stung. I knew coming out was hard, especially for someone like Jake, who'd never questioned his identity before. But every time he hesitated, it felt like a crack in the foundation we were building. "You don't have to tell her," I said carefully. "But you can't keep me a secret forever, Jake. Not if this is real." "It is real," he said, his eyes fierce. "You think I'd go through all this if it wasn't? I'm just scared. My family's everything to me, and I don't know how they'll take it." I wanted to reassure him, to tell him it would be okay, but I knew better. I'd seen friends lose family over less, seen the way love could turn to judgment in a heartbeat. "I get it," I said, "but I need to know you're in this for the long haul." "Because I am." He leaned in, kissing me softly, his hands framing my face. "I am," he whispered. "I promise." But promises are easier said than kept. A few days later, we went to a party at Mike's place, a crowded loft filled with familiar faces. Jake was his usual charming self, but I noticed how he kept his distance, his touches careful, his laughter a little too loud. When Mike pulled him aside, their conversation heated. I caught fragments, words like phase and serious. Jake's face was tight when he came back, grabbing my arm. "Let's get out of here," he said. Outside, he was quiet, his hands shoved in his pockets. "Mike's an idiot," he muttered. Thinks I'm just messing around. That this isn't real. Is it? I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop it. Real. I mean. He stopped, turning to me, his eyes blazing. You think I'd put up with his crap if it wasn't? Ethan, I'm figuring this out. Okay. But I'm not going anywhere. I wanted to believe him, but the doubts were piling up, each one heavier than the last. The next week, Jake got another call from Sarah, this time asking him to come home for Christmas. Just me, he said, avoiding my eyes. She thinks it's better if I'm alone this time. The words hit like a punch. Better for who? I asked, my voice sharp. For everyone, he said, but he didn't sound convinced. It's just one holiday. Ethan, I'll be back. I didn't argue, but the hurt settled in my chest like a stone. He left the next day, promising to call, but the apartment felt colder without him. I tried to fill the days with work, with friends, but the silence was deafening. Christmas Eve, he texted, miss you. This is harder than I thought. I stared at the words, wanting to believe them, but fear whispered that he was slipping away. When he came back, he was different, quieter, more guarded. Family stuff, he said when I asked, but he didn't elaborate. We fell back into our routine, but the ease was gone, replaced by a tension that neither of us acknowledged. I caught him staring at me sometimes, his expression unreadable, and it scared me more than anything. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. Jake, talk to me, I said, cornering him in the kitchen. What's going on? Are you pulling away? He sighed, leaning against the counter. I'm not pulling away. I'm just stuck. My family's asking questions I don't know how to answer. Sarah thinks I'm confused, that I need to figure myself out before I drag you into it. Drag me, I echoed, my voice rising. I'm already in it. Jake, I've been in it since the night you kissed me. I know, he said, his voice breaking. And I don't want to lose you. But I need to do this right for me. For us. I wanted to fight, to demand answers. But I saw the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of a world he was still learning to navigate. Okay, I said finally. But don't make me wait forever. He nodded, pulling me into a hug that felt like a lifeline. I won't, he whispered. I swear. But the world had other plans. A week later, Sarah showed up at our door, unannounced, her eyes sharp and searching. We need to talk, she said, looking at Jake. About you. About him. Sarah's arrival was like a storm breaking over calm waters. She stood in our living room, arms crossed, her gaze flicking between Jake and me. I felt exposed, like she could see every moment we'd shared, every kiss, every doubt. Jake's jaw was tight, his hands shoved in his pockets, but he didn't back down. Sarah, what are you doing here? He asked, his voice steady but edged with tension. I'm here because you're dodging me, she said, her tone sharp but not unkind. You've been weird since Thanksgiving. Jake. Mom's worried. Dad's confused. And I'm tired of guessing what's going on. Her eyes landed on me. Softer, but still piercing. Ethan, you seem like a good guy. But I need to know what's happening with my brother. I glanced at Jake. My heart pounding. This was his call. His truth to tell. He took a deep breath. His shoulders squaring. Sarah, I'm with Ethan. Not just as roommates. We're together. The words hung in the air, heavy and real. Sarah's eyes widened. But she didn't look surprised. Just processing. Okay, she said finally. How long? A few months, Jake said, his voice quieter. It's new, but it's real. She nodded, her gaze softening as she looked at me. And you're okay with this? With him figuring it out as he goes? I swallowed, my throat tight. I'm trying to be. It's not easy. But, yeah. She sighed, running a hand through her hair. Look, I'm not here to judge. I just want to make sure you're both okay. Jake, you know Mom and Dad aren't going to get this right away. They're old school. This is going to be a lot for them. I know, Jake said, his voice low. That's why I haven't told them. I'm not ready. You need to be, she said, her tone firm but kind. Because secrets like this don't stay secret. And Ethan deserves better than being your secret. Her words hit me hard, echoing my own fears. I looked at Jake, waiting for his response, needing to hear it. He met my eyes, his expression raw. He's not a secret, he said. He's the best thing in my life. My heart stuttered, but Sarah wasn't done. Then act like it, she said. Talk to Mom and Dad. Figure out what this means for you. Because if you don't, you're going to hurt him. She left soon after, promising to keep it quiet until Jake was ready. But her visit left a crack in our fragile bubble. A reminder that the world outside our apartment wouldn't wait for us to figure things out. That night, Jake was quiet, his hands restless as we sat on the couch. I meant what I said, he told me, his voice low. You're not a secret. I don't know how to do this yet. I know, I said, reaching for his hand. But Sarah's right. We can't keep this in a vacuum. People are going to find out. And I need to know you're ready for that. He nodded, his grip tightening. I'm trying. I just need a little more time. Time, though, was a luxury we didn't have. A week later, Jake's dad called, his voice booming through the phone. I could hear every word from across the room, questions about Jake's plans, his future, why he was wasting time in Chicago. Jake deflected, but the strain was clear. When he hung up, he looked drained, his eyes distant. They want me to move back, he said, his voice flat. Dad thinks I'm just messing around here, that I need to come home and get serious. Get serious, I echoed, my stomach twisting. What does that mean? He shrugged, but his eyes were heavy. Get a real job. Settle down. The usual. I didn't ask the question burning in my throat, where did I fit into that? But I didn't need to. Jake pulled me close, his arms tight around me. I'm not going anywhere, he said, like he could hear my thoughts. Not without you. But the pressure was mounting. From his family, his friends, the world that didn't know how to make space for us. We started going out less, sticking to our apartment, where we could be ourselves without judgment. It felt safe, but it also felt like hiding. And I hated it. I wanted more for him, for us, but I didn't know how to ask for it without pushing him away. Then came the night that broke everything open. We were at a small gathering with some of my friends, people I'd known from college who were out and proud. They welcomed Jake, but I could see the questions in their eyes. The curiosity about this straight guy who'd crossed a line for me. One of them, Alex, pulled me aside, his voice low. He's great, Ethan, but is he all in? Because you deserve someone who is. I brushed it off, but the question lingered, eating at me. That night, back at the apartment, I couldn't hold it in anymore. Jake, I said, my voice trembling. Are you all in? Because I'm falling for you. And it's terrifying. And I need to know if you're going to be there to catch me. He looked at me, his eyes wide, vulnerable. I'm trying. Ethan. I'm trying so hard. But I don't know if I'm enough for you. Not yet. The honesty gutted me, but it was what I needed to hear. We didn't have all the answers, but we had each other. And for now, that had to be enough. The weeks after Sarah's visit were a balancing act. Each day a mix of hope and fear. Jake was trying. I could see it in the way he held my hand when we were alone, the way he smiled when I caught him watching me. But the outside world kept pressing in, demanding answers we weren't ready to give. His family's calls grew more frequent, their questions sharper, and I could feel Jake pulling inward, wrestling with a future he couldn't quite see. One evening, we went to a local art gallery. A rare night out. The space was warm, filled with soft light and quiet conversations. Jake seemed lighter, his arm brushing mine as we moved through the crowd. We stopped in front of a painting, a vibrant swirl of colors. Two figures intertwined, their faces blurred but their connection clear. That's us, he said, his voice low, a smile tugging at his lips. I laughed, but my heart ached. I wanted that to be us, unapologetic and bold. But we were still hiding, still figuring out how to exist in a world that wasn't always kind. You think we'll get there? I asked, my voice barely audible. He turned to me, his eyes serious. Yeah, I do. But doubt was a persistent shadow. A few days later, Jake got a call from an old friend, Tom, who was passing through Chicago. They'd grown up together, shared a history I couldn't touch. Jake invited him over, and I braced myself, knowing how these encounters could go. Tom was loud, brash, filling the apartment with stories of their high school days. But when Jake mentioned me, calling me his boyfriend, Tom's laughter faltered. Boyfriend? He echoed, his eyes narrowing. Since when are you into guys? Jake didn't flinch. Since Ethan, he said simply, his hand finding mine under the table. Tom didn't push, but the air shifted. His jokes a little sharper. His glances a little colder. When he left, Jake was quiet. His shoulders slumped. He'll come around, I said, trying to sound convincing. Maybe, Jake said, but his voice was heavy. Or maybe he won't. I'm starting to realize how many people I might lose over this. The words cut deep. Not because they were new, but because they were true. I'd lived that reality, friends who'd drifted away, family who'd looked at me differently. But for Jake, it was all new. A price he hadn't expected to pay. Do you regret it? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He looked at me, his eyes fierce. No. I'd rather lose them than lose you. But the cost was real, and it was starting to show. Jake's smiles were rarer, his laughter quieter. I tried to be his anchor, but I was struggling too, caught between wanting to protect him and needing to protect myself. One night, he came home late, his eyes red, his voice raw. I told my dad, he said, slumping onto the couch. About us. My heart stopped. What did he say? He didn't yell, Jake said, his voice hollow. He just went quiet. Said he needed time to think. Mom cried. Sarah tried to mediate, but it's a mess. I sat beside him, my hand on his back. I'm sorry, I said, feeling helpless. Do you want me to talk to them? He shook his head. No. This is my fight. I didn't think it'd hurt this much. We sat in silence, the weight of his words settling around us. I wanted to fix it, to take away his pain, but all I could do was hold him, hoping it was enough. The next few days were tense. Jake's phone silent, his family's response hanging over us like a storm cloud. Then came the letter. It was from his dad, handwritten, slipped under our door by a neighbor who'd gotten it by mistake. Jake read it first, his face unreadable, then handed it to me. It was short, formal, but the words were heavy disappointment, confusion, a plea for Jake to come home and figure things out. There was love there, buried under the hurt, but it was clear they weren't ready to accept us. Jake didn't cry, but his silence was louder than tears. What do I do? He asked, his voice breaking. They're my family, Ethan. But you're my home. I pulled him close, my own eyes burning. You don't have to choose, I said, though I wasn't sure I believed it. We'll figure it out. Together. But the world kept pushing. Rumors started spreading through Mike, through Tom, through the small, interconnected web of Jake's old life. People talked, judged, and I saw the toll it took on him. The way he carried himself a little smaller, a little less sure. I hated it. Hated that loving me was costing him so much. One night, I found him on the fire escape, staring at the city lights. I don't know if I'm strong enough for this, he said, his voice barely audible. I want to be, Ethan, for you. But it's hard. I know, I said, sitting beside him. And if it's too much, I'll let you go. I love you too much to make you fight a war you're not ready for. He turned to me, his eyes wet. I love you too, he said, the words raw and real. That's why I'm still here. It was the first time he'd said it, and it broke me open, hope and fear colliding in my chest. We kissed there, under the stars, the city humming below us. But even as I held him, I knew we were at a crossroads, and the path ahead was anything but certain. The city felt different after Jake said he loved me like the air was lighter. But the stakes were higher. We were in deep now. No turning back. And the weight of that truth settled over us like a second skin. Jake was trying. Harder than I'd ever seen. But the world wasn't making it easy. His family's silence grew louder. Their calls less frequent. And I could see the toll it took. The way his shoulders slumped when he thought I wasn't looking. We started building a life together. Small steps in a world that felt too big. We went to more queer spaces. Places where we could hold hands without looking over our shoulders. Jake was nervous at first. His laughter a little too loud. But he leaned into it. Asking questions. Listening to my friends' stories. Finding his place in a world he'd never known. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. One night, we hosted a small dinner at the apartment. Just a few of my friends and one of Jake's Sarah, who'd driven up from Ohio. She watched us with a quiet smile, her eyes softer than before. You're good for him, she told me when Jake was in the kitchen. He's different with you. Happier. I wanted to believe her, but the fear was still there. A quiet hum beneath the surface. Later, as we cleaned up, Jake pulled me close, his hands warm on my waist. I want to tell them, he said, his voice steady. Mom and Dad. For real this time. No more half-truths. My heart raced. Are you sure? After the letter. I'm sure, he said, his eyes locked on mine. I'm done hiding. I want them to know who I am. Who we are. The call happened a week later, on a quiet Sunday morning. Jake put it on speaker, his hand gripping mine as his mom's voice came through. Tentative but warm. Jake, we got your letter, she said, her words careful. It's a lot. But we love you. We're trying to understand. His dad was quieter, his voice gruff. I don't get it, he admitted. But you're my son. That doesn't change. It wasn't acceptance. Not fully. But it was a start. Jake's hand trembled in mine, his relief palpable. When the call ended, he pulled me into a hug, his breath shaky. Thank you, he whispered. For waiting. I'd wait forever, I said, and I meant it. The months that followed weren't easy. Jake lost friends. People who couldn't reconcile the Jake they knew with the one standing beside me. But he gained others. People who saw him for who he was now. Who celebrated us. We moved forward. Together. Building something stronger than the doubts that had once held us back. One evening, as spring bloomed over Chicago, we sat on the fire escape, the city alive below us. Jake's arm was around me, his warmth a steady anchor. "I never thought I'd end up here," he said, his voice soft. "But I'm glad I did." "Me too," I said, leaning into him. The path hadn't been easy, but it was ours, carved out of courage and love and the kind of truth that changes everything. We weren't perfect, and the world wasn't either. But we had each other, and that was enough. As the city lights flickered below, I realized that this messy, beautiful, hard-won love was the life I'd always wanted. And Jake, the guy who dared me to prove it, was the one I'd been waiting for all along.